Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Hello, this is the Italian Wine Podcast with me, Monty Waldin. Today my guest is Giovanni Ponchia, who is the director of the Colli Berici and Vicenza DOC Consorzio, the Producers Consortium. Welcome, Giovanni.
Hi, Monty. Thanks for the invitation.
That's all right. It's a pleasure to see you, actually. Let's begin. How did you start your career in wine?
Probably a couple of decades ago, in the end of the 90s, I fell in love in Friuli while I was doing the Army Air Service. And then it became a nice surprise for me to discover that there was also a university specializing in enology and viticulture in Conegliano. I started and I finished, and then since 2001 I always worked in the world of wine in Italy, Tuscany, Friuli, and mainly Veneto.
Okay, which region are you from in Italy?
I come from a small town near Venice. I worked in Tuscany, I worked in the Colli Orientali del Friuli, and also in a couple of areas in Veneto, in the Piave area, and in the Verona Soave production area.
So then you started working for the Soave, with the Soave producers?
I started to work with them in 2005. That's what I did it until 1 year ago. I worked 12 years on a lot of studies, researches. Soave is one of the most studied areas in Italy, but we were able to go on with a lot of maps, and soil maps, very detailed, and a lot of research comparing wines produced in different phases, in different situations, and probably we draw some line that other Italian areas can try to imitate or try to follow.
Yeah, what you did there was very revolutionary. Whose idea was that, to do the soil mapping in such incredible detail?
Yes, but to do that you have to do a lot of holes.
Dig a lot of holes?
Yeah, hundreds of holes in order to know exactly what you have under your feet. And the soils are really strange and are, in my opinion, really able to influence the production, but you always need to have a detailed study of your area. And for example, Soave is characterized by two main kind of soils. And it's the same also in my new area while I'm working now in the Colli Berici, that are very close to the Soave production area, are in the heart of the Veneto region, but it's the opposite the geological situation. In the Colli Berici is the limestone that is having the largest part of the areas, while the basaltic stones or tuffs or other kind of rocks are limited to 3-4 particular areas, very limited.
In the Colli Berici, but in Soave it's more dominant, isn't it, this volcanic soil?
Yeah, Soave is characterized, 2/3 of the Soave Classico are volcanic, are basaltic, and talking about the large appellation, more than half.
Okay, so in Colli Berici, what's the main grape variety for white wine?
Well, the most cultivated varieties are the Cabernet Sauvignon, first place, second place Merlot, and third place Thai Rosso. Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, you already know what it is. Thai Rosso is a biotype of kind of a Grenache or Garnacha, or can now call it as you want. It is a Mediterranean variety that grow up very well in hydric stress conditions, needs a lot of hot, it doesn't like too much rain, and Thai Rosso is able to express a range of really versatile of wines, from the light-colored version, really crispy and acid, until the bold versions, sometimes with a bit of drying, with a darker color and with a lot of structure and important alcoholic level. So there is not a single identity for the Thai Rosso.
How come Colli Berici is so dry then? What's the topography there? Is it wetter than Soave?
Yes, compared with the climatical condition of the rest of the hills of the Verona and Vicenza area, is a bit less rainy. The temperature temperature during the summer are a bit higher, mainly southwest and southeast exposed the largest part of the vineyards in Colli Berici. Limestone with a lot of hydric stress that is granted by the draining stones, and so it's a perfect place for the cultivation of varieties that love the hot, and that's because I call it a Mediterranean island in the middle of the Pianura Padana, of the flat plain of the River Po.
So got a technical question. It's a dry area, so hydric stress, but on limestone, what is the ideal rootstock there for the grape varieties that you'll plant?
Depends, because having different varieties, I mentioned Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot and Tairosso, but we have also a strong presence of Garganega, of Pinot Blanc, of Sauvignon. All these varieties need a kind of different rootstock in order to express themselves. Depends, but anyway, the most favorite are those that love the stony soils.
If we try, say, a white wine from Colli Berici and one from Soave, what are the differences in taste that we're going to find?
Well, the Colli Berici expresses some bloody sensation, okay? Bloody. It's characterized by the iron, in my opinion. There is a style inconfundable. It's very difficult to don't understand if a red wine comes from the Colli Berici. So you need to find the touch of iron, neither if you are talking about Cabernet or Merlot or Tairosso. In the Soave world, what you have to find is a peach apricot, in the younger versions a bit of grapefruit, and after some year you start to feel some particular sensation that probably somebody called minerality. In the beginning is a sapid sensation in the mouth, and then in the nose after some year becomes something different to be decodified, and in my opinion is anyway an appealing way to mature for this wine. Soave, in my opinion, has the two main characters, the chalk and the basalts. Two wines produced in two different places are able to express after 5, 6, 7 years in a different way, and the salt in the mouth is what, in my opinion, characterizes Soave.
From both basalt and from limestone, or?
Both, but it's influenced by the vintage, I understood in the recent years.
Okay, so how big is the Colli Berici DOC in terms of how many hectares are planted of wine grapes?
In total is 20,000 hectares in total, okay?
So that's pretty sizable.
No, it's more or less bigger like the Monti Lessini appellation area. The amount of vineyards cultivated is about 2,000.
Oh, okay.
And actually we are using 700 hectares for the Colli Berici production, all of the hilly areas, so excluding the flatlands all around. So Colli Berici means actually only hilly areas, hilly grapes and hilly vineyards.
So some appellations, so some denominations in Italy, when it says Colli Hills, it doesn't always come from the hills. But you're saying in the case of Colli Berici, it really does. This is a wine from the hills of the Berici, and it really does come from the hills.
Yeah, there are also vineyards on the perimeter of the areas, but are actually not used for the Colli Berici production. It's a geographical name, is the name of the chain, so it's normal that all the area take this name, but I would like to specify that actually we are using only hilly grapes.
Now, what is the main market for these wines? So they're mainly red.
For 2/3 of the production is red wines, and the remaining 1/3 is white. Red, I already told you, the most bottled is the Merlot, and the second place there is the Cabernet and the Tairosso, while the most cultivated is anyway the Cabernet Sauvignon. Talking about the production, actually we are approaching to 2 million bottles produced every year.
And the main markets?
Italy, Germany, and a bit of UK.
Now, what about the Vicenza DOC? What is Vicenza?
Vicenza is the name of the town, capital of the province. It's a town that is included inside the Colli Berici, and it's also a name of a larger DOC that includes also the Colli Berici and then includes all the hilly areas in Vicenza province, in the western part, in the northern part of the province. Everything there is hill cultivated, and there the situation is the opposite. And the most cultivated varieties are Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay.
Right, okay, so big focus on French varieties in this particular part of the world. So you got you talk about Cabernet and Merlot and...
Yes.
Why is that focused on the French grape varieties? Is that history?
The history dates back to the period in which there there were the destruction of the phylloxera in France, but probably something earlier. Probably in the end of the 18th century, there was a huge beginning of the flux of immigration of Italy abroad, and a lot of people went to work in the country in France. Coming back in the 19th century, there was a huge amount of these varieties brought to Italy, not only in the Colli Berici, also in the all Vicenza and Treviso and Padua provinces. Was really poor developed until 50 years ago. That's because the flux of immigration was huge, and talking about the viticulture was absolutely influenced by the land where this huge mass of workers did their job.
What about climate change in these two areas, the Colli Berici and Vicenza? How are growers treating, or what are growers doing to combat climate change?
Several weeks without rains. Also this year is confirmed the trend of the last 7 years. So it means that few rains in June, and July and August really dried. Well, it's a problem if you need to produce quantity, if you want to do quintals, tons. No? If you are doing work focused on the quality, focused on low yields, it's not bad. It's not bad. And you have to remember that the hottest vintages like this one are always perfect for the red varieties, and all the whites suffer a lot because of the flavors, because of the balance of the acidity. While for the red varieties, it's best because these sun rays are able to cook, to get mature the tannins inside the red berries. And that's because probably of the secret of the good maturation of the polyphenolic material. For the hard varieties, for the hard white varieties is a bit harder, the questions. Probably we must insist on varieties that are friendly with the hydric stress. Probably we must focus on varieties less compact, talking about the bunches. And we must also think about the training system. That is probably decisive.
So you talk about pergola versus spaliera, pergola versus hedge style vines, or something different?
Pergola and Guyot, for example, are able to give two completely different results. The pergola is able to save the freshness, and so the level of acidity inside the berries, and also the terpenic substances. While the Guyot is able to express 1 degree of alcohol potential more inside the grapes, and also help this trellising the development of the rhizoprenoid aromas. So another family, but two are very good trellising. So you must probably find the balance between both, and without deciding for one instead of the other. Probably the secret will be in the balance, because if you have a hailstorm with the Guyot, you will have 50% of damage, while with the pergola only 10%.
Just give me the name of that terpene again for the Guyot in the heat. What was that again?
What?
The terpene again that you mentioned, the chemical compound that you mentioned with the Guyot that you said at the end. What was that?
Rhizoprenoid.
Well, okay, so
Rhizoprenoid.
what does that give?
Balsamic sensation are normally influenced by the hottest temperature. And also for Professor Scienza, the rhizoprenoid aromas rhizoprenoid compounds are those that are responsible after some year of the birth of the sensation of
minerality. So Professor Scienza, Attilio Scienza, who's a renowned professor on Italian wine.
Very well known, probably is the most expert in Italy about viticulture and a lot of other stuff.
Final question. If we go to Colli Berici or Vicenza, what are the typical dishes that we would enjoy with some of the local wines?
Baccalà alla Vicentina is in a home place.
Baccalà is salt cod.
Absolutely. Baccalà alla Vicentina, long cooked, and then they have a particular kind of soppressa that is a local salum, really salty, really dry, really enjoyable.
It's a salty pork.
But Vicenza is hard to describe only one dish. Vicenza is probably in the Veneto area the richer in gastronomic tradition. Is huge. The level of the restoration of the restaurants in Vicenza is huge.
Right, so that must be good for the local wine then.
Yeah. The largest part of the wines from Blues and Colli Berici are really gastronomic. Always really heavy, often, and means with alcohol higher.
Because of the heat?
Exactly. To have concentration in Colli Berici is quite natural. There are several producers, starting with fresh grapes, that are able to arrive to wines with 15 degrees of alcohol. Just to give you an idea what is the natural concentration that you can obtain in the Colli Berici.
Really? That's very high. For somewhere that's so far north, you would never really expect that, would you? You would think maybe you'd be in Sicily or...
But the largest part of the vineyards in Colli Berici are cultivated in the east, south and west sides. The northern part that is characterized by the alpine climate is not so used for the viticulture in Colli Berici. There is not land, there is not earth, the slopes are steepy, and there are woods, it's cooler. The Colli Berici are divided in two phases, where you can cultivate the vines and where you don't have to cultivate nothing because of the climate, because of the winds, because of the influence of the method. It is clear, if nobody planted some vineyard in some place, there is always a reason. Our grandfathers didn't study, but already know a lot of stuff.
So they knew where to plant and where not to plant. Giovanni Ponchia, thanks very much for coming in today to talk about the Colli Berici and the Vicenza area. Fascinating to talk to you as usual. Hope to get you back on the podcast at some stage. We can go into soil in greater detail, seeing as you are one of the leading experts on soil, I think, in Italy. And we'll do just a podcast devoted to soil if that's okay. But Giovanni Ponchia, thanks very much. It's been fascinating to talk to you.
Thank you, Monty.
Good luck in the Colli Berici and Vicenza.
Thank you. Bye to everybody.
Follow Italian Wine Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.